They were presented before the emperor in shackles in the throne hall. Ronan, sitting on his golden throne, had his eyes fixed only on Aadil. His rebellious glare was not something he could ignore. The emperor rose from his seat, undoubtedly the tallest man in the room. Aadil raised his chin to once again meet Ronan's eyes. Seeing Aadil's rage and bravery, he smiled. He walked down the steps and stood before him. "Who are you?" he asked Aadil, cocking his head. "A thief." Aadil gritted his teeth. "You are so much more." He smiled. The name of Ronan was enough to shake an entire city if not a kingdom. His appearance was not any less scary. A thin man, tall as a giant, long beardless face with scars and red eyes. And the smirk on his face was felt like the image of death. "What is your name, boy?" "Aadil." "Your eyes have more courage than an army itself, boy." "Well, I see nothing to be afraid of." Ronan chuckled. "You got inside the castle and killed my guards, but you three got caught. Without any doubt, you three are amateurs. You wish to talk us to death." Aadil interrupted. "No. I don't have time for that. Your eyes reminded me of someone. A woman who stabbed me in the shoulder. The only human to ever lay a finger on me with the intention to kill me. So, you are used to getting beaten by women." Aadil twisted his eyes, mocking him. Ronan chuckled again. "You failed to kidnap my sister because she was already taken. Would you like to explain how that happened?" "How would we know?" Henry asked. Ronan suddenly grabbed Rowan's neck and pulled him up with one hand. "Where is my sister? Who took her?" He gritted his teeth. "Hey!" Both Aadil and Henry shouted, trying to intervene, but Ronan's knights grabbed them, not letting them move. "We don't know anything," Henry shouted, fighting with the knights in vain. "You claim to have no knowledge of anything regarding my sister's disappearance." But Ronan tightened his grip. Rowan coughed, unable to breathe. "Your friend's eyes tell me a different story." "Leave him!" Aadil screamed. He couldn't see his people in pain. His village and people were his family, and he loved them far more than he could ever love himself. Ronan threw Rowan against the stairs below the throne. Rowan shouted as his bones broke and cracked against the steps. Grunting in pain, Rowan held his right shoulder with his left hand. He closed his eyes in unbearable pain. "Rowan!" Both Aadil and Henry screamed. "Where is my sister?" Ronan slowly walked towards Rowan. The tyrant once again grabbed him by his neck and pulled him up. "Where is my sister?" "Ask Crane," said Rowan in the lowest tone possible. "What?" Aadil blinked. "What is he saying?" Henry's eyes widened. Crane was the ruler of Cage, an independent domain of the north, also known as the Land of Prisoners. Crane used to supply slaves all over the realm to the kings and the merchants. He was an ally of Ronan, but they both hated each other. Both had a lust for each other's power. The emperor wished to take over Cage and make even Crane his slave, but he couldn't as the land was protected by magic, and for that reason, only Crane's land was free despite being a part of the Northern Empire. Cage's ruler was obsessed with Ronan's powers, his royalty, and authority over the north, but he couldn't go against him as he was too powerful. "I gave Crane the information he needed to get inside the palace." Rowan weakly smiled. Aadil wasn't sure what he was hearing. "What are you saying? You were with us the whole time. Who was it? Whom I killed?" Ronan figured that the boy was doing all this out of spite. It was about revenge. "My father and my brother," he replied in the lowest tone possible. "Throw them in the dungeon. Let them have a final moment before I decide what to do with them." Ronan threw Rowan before Aadil and Henry, who had stopped struggling. They only stared at Rowan, couldn't understand what had just happened. They were not sure what they heard was right. One of their own had betrayed them. In the dark, dreary dungeon, Aadil and Henry demanded answers. They wanted to know why Rowan had tricked them all, and the poor wounded thief told them how his father and brother were captured by Ronan, who had them killed, and his mother died for not getting the medicines. "How did you become partners with Crane?" Aadil asked, leaning against the wall with his arms crossed around his chest. "Ask him how he became Crane's pawn," Henry corrected. "I was captured by Crane's men in the Red Forest a year ago. I somehow reached out to Crane and offered him my assistance in taking down Ronan. They all laughed but let me go, mocking me with a magical paper," Rowan said. "Magical paper?" Henry blinked. "If you write something, the paper burns itself after a few minutes and the message on it goes to Crane." "Wait, what?" Henry's eyes widened. "And here I thought this can't be more insane. I don't expect you to understand." "You what?" Aadil narrowed his gaze at him. "Your tragic tale is the story of almost everyone in the village." He took off his shirt and showed him his body filled with scars. "I am the Zaim's adopted son. My village was attacked by robbers when I was 7. They robbed, raped, butchered, and burned everything in front of our eyes. They didn't stop after destroying everything. They took many girls with them. They didn't spare the corpses of the girls. They were just not satisfied. And I saw all this when I was just a kid. Do you have any idea what it's like to witness the rape of women, children, and corpses of girls along with a view of your village on fire when you are just 7? He put the shirt back on. "I don't know how I ended up in Tahersalmania. All I know is that the Zaim's second adopted son, a man, found me and took me in. I am sorry," Rowan cried. "Ask Allah for forgiveness." "Not us," said Henry. Suddenly, the guards brought in a mysterious hooded girl and threw her in. "Enjoy your time here. After the Emperor is done with you, you're ours," a knight and said laughed lustfully with his fellow soldiers. The girl immediately got on her feet as they left. "Have you figured out how we can get out of this place?" was the first thing that came out of her mouth. Henry raised his right eyebrow, staring at her. Aadil and Henry exchanged confused glances. Instead of staring at each other like the kids from the land of no women, "You can answer me." She removed her hood and pulled back her sparkling silver hair. Aadil and Henry saw her ears. Her light silver eyes, hair, and bright white skin confirmed that she was a light elf. "We've seen women before," said Aadil. "But never a light elf," Henry added, his brows drawn together in puzzlement. "I thought it was just a myth." Aadil narrowed his gaze at her. "Really?" the girl chuckled. "Haven't you heard about the secret kingdom of the hidden light elf kingdom?" Aadil didn't let her finish. "We heard. But never really cared. Thought it was a myth." The girl turned her eyes to Aadil and stared back at her. "Start caring. Because we do exist. What are you doing here? Aren't you supposed to be in your secret kingdom with your kind?" "I came here to steal the Book of All. But I got caught. Like you." "Book of All?" Aadil had never heard of it. "What is that?" Henry too never heard of it. "It contains secrets. A lot of them. Maybe all of the secrets of the Dazark. Ronan keeps it under the protection of hundreds of guards and sorcerers." She folded her arms, exhaled, and asked again, "Do you have any plans of getting out of here or not?" There was no reply. They simply turned their gaze away. "Great." She smiled and jerked her head in disappointment. She then noticed Rowan. "Who's he? Is he all right?" "He is a traitor and he is dying," Aadil answered. She figured instantly that she shouldn't be asking anything more about Rowan. Besides, she didn't know any of them nor cared. "Someone is coming," Henry said, hearing footsteps. "I assure you, brother, it's more than just someone." Guards were on their way to their cell. Aadil and Henry thought of hundreds of possibilities. "Let's go," a guard said as 4 more of them arrived. Sitting on the table of Ronan's huge dining hall, Aadil could think of one thing: what was Ronan planning? His eyes were scanning the entire place. The golden markings of the walls, the beautiful lamps, and the night surrounding them. Henry was doing the same thing. He too was looking for a way out. But with so many guards, it seemed impossible. The light elf, unlike them, had her eyes fixed on Ronan. She was holding a spoon in her hand tightly, as if she was going to stab him with it. All she needed was an opportunity. "Stop looking for a way out, Aadil." Ronan finally broke the silence. He looked at Aadil and smiled. He then turned his gaze to the left at Henry. "You too. What about me? You are not going to ask me anything. You wish to know something. But I don't know what your question is." "Why are we here?" she asked, giving him an unrelenting stare, finding it suspicious that the ones who were to be executed were at the dining table. "Every single one of you has something I need." "How?" Aadil's brows knitted in a frown. Instead of replying, Ronan looked down at the food that was served to him. Frustration crinkled his eyes like something was wrong with the chicken. He angrily threw his food at the wall. The plate shattered, and its contents scattered on the floor. "What is this?" he shouted. Aadil and Henry got up instantly and looked at the food. The muscles in both of their faces tightened. "What is wrong with you?" Henry yelled at Ronan. The guards drew out the swords instantly, and 2 of them held the blades at their necks. If their emperor didn't want them alive, they would have been headless by now. Ronan narrowed his eyes. "What happened to you two?" Ronan sounded confused. "You wasted food. You disrespected it. It's just food. If you want, I can give you so much that you won't be able to finish it all in a lifetime," the tyrant chuckled. The elf narrowed her eyes. She wondered why they were acting so strange about something so normal. "It was just a chicken. To you, it's just food because you have no idea what hunger is," Aadil said. In the dry seasons, many people had to starve to death because of the lack of food and water in the desert. And in the secret villages of thieves, it was far worse. Wasting food reminded them of all the deaths that hunger caused in their village. They respected food. They saw it as a blessing. Ronan laughed loudly. Aadil and Henry clenched their hands into fists, their eyes flashed with rage. "Sit down. We have so much to discuss." They sat unwillingly. There was no other way. "I want you two to work for me. Obey me, and you will never be hungry, nor will anyone else in your village. You will find everything you want at your feet." Ronan wanted warriors like them. If 2 of them were so loyal and brave despite their young age, then an entire village would be an undefeatable army. He wanted a perfect army of true warriors, not the puppets that he owned. "Forget it," Aadil interrupted. "What?" the tyrant blinked. "We don't bow our heads. And that's what you want us to do," Henry proudly said. "If you want our heads, take it, but we are not bowing." Henry, full of brightness and faith, stared right into Ronan's eyes and said, "You think you can throw riches at our feet, and we will serve you like some kind of fantasy god? We will throw everything in this world for our honor. You wish to be our god, but you are nothing. You are not even worth knowing." Aadil turned his gaze away. Ronan stared at Aadil for a moment. The girl got confused too. She couldn't figure out why they were provoking that tyrant. They all knew what kind of monster he was. "I want my sister back and you will bring her back to me," the tyrant finally said, realizing that nothing in this world could seduce them. Trying to convince or turn them would be a waste of time. "I am not sure that she would want to return to you," Aadil turned his face back to him. "It's not about what she wants. I want her. That's all." Ronan slammed against the table, rattling everything on it. "What about me?" the girl finally asked, unable to keep her mouth shut anymore. "Well, princess, I need you to tell me the location of your kingdom. How do you know that I am a princess? I'm older than you think. Old enough to have forgotten just how many enemies you have." A male voice came from above them. They all looked up and found a hooded assassin standing upside down on the ceiling with his arms folded around his chest. "Dante." Ronan's eyes widened. Even with the mask on, he recognized him. The man had grabbed the curved symbols of the ceiling by his feet. Before any of them could think, he dropped a tiny little ball on the floor, and it exploded, releasing a huge amount of black smoke that instantly filled the room. They all began to cough and quickly fainted.